Welcome to the Limitless Leaders Podcast. Thanks for joining us today, and thanks for all your feedback of late. We've had lots of great feedback around the episodes we've been releasing and also topics and guests for future episodes. Today, we're going to have more of a laid-back sort of feel, and I've got an amazing friend and work colleague that I'd love you to introduce you to, and her name is Shelley Flett. She's a leadership trainer and coach who works with individuals and teams to maximize efficiency and build high-performance cultures in all size organizations. She's operated her business successfully since 2015 after leaving a corporate career in customer service and operations. She's a mum of 3 gorgeous children. I've met them all and they're absolutely divine, and loves to incorporate fun and adventure both at work and at play. Welcome, Shelley.
Thanks for having me, Renee. So good to have this conversation.
I know, been a bit excited, and lots of things happening in both of our businesses. And one that's a bit of a highlight is that we have got recently to co-create a communication team game called 2 Sides in 2 Minutes, and recently had the launch, and thought this would be a great opportunity to talk about, I guess, how we conceptualize the game, why we created the game, and always love to give our listeners just some tips and tricks that they can take away and apply in their life and their leadership.
I have never been so excited about anything that I've created before. I think this even trumps my book, Renee, in terms of usefulness.
I think so. It's useful. It's a beautiful, tangible game, and we know everyone loves being back in a room, and we've designed it on purpose to be played in person. And I think too, Shell, both of us have the value of joy and play. So bringing that game into our programs and in the things we're running together is super exciting. So I'd love to kick off, I guess, and just have an open conversation around communication. I've always said communication is the response you get. If you're not getting what you need back from your team, from your peers or your upline, you need to shape and shift your message until you do. Why do you think, especially now, it always has been, but especially now, that communication is so important in any role?
I think because we've got really bad at it, to be honest. And I think that we need to expand how we look at communication, because when we're focusing on improving communication, we're often thinking about, what am I saying? How am I saying it? Is it easily digestible, etc. But as you mentioned, communication is a response that you get, and I think that we're not listening. I don't think it's that we're not saying what needs to be said. I think that's come a long way, but I think our capacity to pay attention and to listen to other people just for a couple of seconds is it's a really scary place right now.
It is. And I think with the messages, hundreds of thousands of messages we receive a day, technology, Zooms, people working longer, more intense hours from home. People are saying they're more productive. Maybe they are, but they're actually probably working 2 to 3 hours more. I think I agree. It's become stifled. And I love what you said about, it takes us we need to be present. And I always say communication is 60% listening, 40% talking. Sort of comes back to 2 ears, one mouth, sort of, the old adage.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that social media and I think technology now plays a huge part in that. And another reason why it's so important for this game to be played in person, because you and I both know as facilitators, and I'm sure that any leaders who are listening understand the challenges that come with having a virtual interaction with someone is that there's all these external disruptions and distractions, and you're really seeing people struggle to focus just in the conversation virtually. So I think there is a bit of a catalyst to get people back into the room, just to reset communication and go, let's actually learn to be present together, and then take that back to your virtual environment. And I think we've got to relearn.
That's what I was just about to say. I think we've had to unlearn. Now it's about refreshing and relearning and evolving the way we communicate. I totally agree with you. And I actually saw this YouTube clip that a client sent me the other week, and I've been meaning to share it, but it's about the rise of dumb phones. So a dumb phone is a featureless phone. So it's just a phone, no Wi-Fi connection. And evidently the sales of these dumb phones versus smartphones are nearly on par. And it's the younger generation. So it'll be so interesting to see. I'll probably be 70 by then. But it'll be so interesting to see in 20 years this shift that I think is coming through. But let's get a bit into the game, and we'll talk about why we created the game. But I've always had, I don't know about you, Shell, but I've always had this belief that there's no such thing as personality clashes, only communication breakdowns. And if you're listening or watching this right now and you're going, what? A personality to me is like the packaging on a box of chocolates. It's what you see. It's your perception of that person. And you can't change that. What you need to do is unwrap that box of chocolates and look what's inside, motivation, communication, all of these things. And a lot of the time, I had a client the other week, a senior leader, that said to me, I'm leaving, personality clash with my manager. I've always had it. And we sort of unwrapped it, and it got to this exact conversation. And he said, you're right. He's detail, I'm big picture. I'm marketing, he's service and finance. He's always looking at the negatives, what could go wrong. I'm looking always at what could go right. I'm an optimist. And I said, you've just named the traits that are different, but you could be a dream team if you actually appreciate and leverage those together. What do you think?
I love that you use the word appreciation. And I think that's what's missing, is this appreciation, sincere appreciation, with this reservation of judgment. If we can appreciate other people without applying this level of judgment, and judgment comes from our own perspective and how we've formed things, right? So it's like, well, who are we to judge, really? And I think
if does you can take away, does it it's a bit of we ran a thing this week on bias, towards or against something or someone based on our experiences. And I think the game, that's some feedback we've actually had, is it really helps you appreciate perspectives of other people.
And I think and I say, I remember saying this to my oldest son when he was kind of just heading into puberty, where all that the hormones spike and he doesn't care about anyone but himself, and look at how good I am, kind of thing. And love him. One of the things to him again and again and again over that first year was, be humble. Just be humble. It's not all about you. And I think along with appreciation, I think humility is really important, and particularly for leaders, I think they've got to lead the way in that.
They do. And it interlinks humility, appreciation, gratitude. At the moment, gratitude is the number, there's 10 reasons people, the great resignation, all that sort of thing. But gratitude and appreciation and recognition is coming in at number 3. People don't feel it, and it's not hard to do. And I love too that this game can bring your team together, learn, grow, connect, but above all, it's actually going to really help you bond and just get to know each other on a level playing field almost. So Shell, there's lots of barriers to communication, and you're the same in your facilitation. We speak to participants about this. There's hundreds of them. Culture, experience, hybrid work now, which is going away.
Yeah, and I think what the game allows, like, there's just so many benefits of the game, and I think one of the things that it allows us to do is give each other the space to say what's going on in our heads. And that's the whole idea, is you pick a card up, you read the statement on the card, and you speak about that statement for and against for 1 minute each, and it's uninterrupted. So you think about, how often do I actually get the stage for 2 minutes,
2 whole minutes, and be profoundly listened to. So, and also I love the game in the fact that, you've got a speaker that we'll talk about that now, and then we've got people that observe and provide feedback. So everyone in each of the rounds of this game has an active, part to play, and they're learning. So let's talk about why we came up with the game, because we've both facilitated, hundreds and hundreds of workshops and coaching and all those things over the years with lots of different industries. And I guess it was when we talked about the key challenges that they all have in common.
Yeah, and I think so. I think when I came and spoke to you about this, the idea, and we came up with this together, I'd been practicing this concept of running debates within leadership teams, because what I was seeing is this really nice space that they'd created, but it was too nice. It was almost that they had trust, but I think it was surface level trust. There was no one was disagreeing with anyone else, and they were yesing all of the time and supporting each other, and it
eggshells,
felt
almost like eggshells, just walking on eggshells around each other, but not going deep. But when if you spoke to them about their capacity to go deep, they would have said yes. I think they went deep on. So they had really good personal connections, but again, it was never a disruptive conversation. It was always for this, in support of, etc. And I think you need that. I mean, absolutely, you need that. But it was that disruption bit. It was that, well, what if I don't agree with you? What do we do then? And I think it's where a lot of relationships deteriorate, is we've never talked about what happens when I disagree with you or something that you say or have done. And therefore, if I need to approach you with that, it's suddenly a tough conversation. It's one of those things that's hard to have. It's limiting to our relationship, rather than looking at it as something. It escalates, and rather than something that we say, wow, that's going to make us stronger, we actually say, no, that's going to break it, and we can't touch, and because of that we can't touch it. And I think that was a huge one. I agree, Shelley. I think there's we run things like you do, where we get teams to mastermind things so they have healthy debate. And I've always had a saying, probably 7 years ago, debate with intent trumps harmony for comfort's sake.
Beautiful.
That's one of my little taglines. And I think if you're listening and you walk out of leadership team meetings, or you walk out of a meeting with your team, and then you go speak to somebody and go, yeah, I don't even agree with that, I don't know why we spent that time, it's going in circles, you're not stepping up. And I think I always say, if you've got something to say and you don't say it, and you keep thinking about it, it's important. And on the flip side, if you're that person that always dominates that leadership team meeting, use questions and provocations to bring other people in. So the game in a nutshell, really is to get teams to connect, to grow, to boost their communication skills, to understand each other at a deeper level. So some of you listening may have come to our launch, and many leaders we're both working with are running this with their teams, and we're obviously running it in our programs. But we suggest groups of 4. So if you've got, 12 people in your team, you might have 3 groups of 4. Yeah. One person's the speaker, and the other 3 in each group are the observers. And in a nutshell, and we can send you to the site where it's got all this, but it's really about the speaker choosing a serious or light-hearted topic, and we have some fun ones in there. And we've got wild cards. So if you've just completed a project or a restructure or an idea that you've brought to life, you can use that. So the speaker chooses a topic and they speak for it for a minute. They have a minute break, and then they speak against it for a minute. And the idea is you want to come across as a speaker with no bias, evenly weighted, and have a congruency in your message for both sides. And then, Shelley, the observers, what do they do?
So the observers then, they pick a card. So we've got 12 observer cards based on what Renée and I have come up with around the 12 dimensions of communication. And so, the observer card might be something like, is the speaker consistent in their emotion? And you'd be looking for, are they consistent throughout what they're saying? And are they consistent across both sides, both for and against? And so the observer's role is then to really just focus on that one component. If you're good at observing and you feel sort of more confident with being able to provide feedback, you might pick up 2 observer cards. So you might look for emotion, you might look for then how are they using their time, etc. The better you get at this, the more cards that you can pick up, and eventually you can get to the stage where you can observe for the whole 12 dimensions of communication and offer feedback at any point in time. So the observer, and I think what's really interesting about this, in what we spoke about earlier with listening, is that there's no passive players in this game. They're all active.
No. That's what I love. So as an observer, and we give you some tips in the little book that you get with the game, as an observer, you're practicing, you're really practicing a honed in way to give feedback that's succinct, targeted, and applicable. And, as the speaker, having to speak for and against something is more challenging than it sounds, especially if you're passionately for something or passionately against. And, going back to your team, when someone else voices something that you don't agree with, it's really going to help you with this adaptability, which is great. And the passport book, you get a little book with it that's got the 12 dimensions. And, if I get some feedback on effective use of time, I've gone over time, it will give some remedies of how I can increase that skill. And this could go into my development plan as well. Which is really exciting. It's just, and you've got 104 topics that the speaker can pick up, and like I said, you've got wild cards too. So Shell, I was thinking for the listeners today, maybe we talk about a few of the dimensions, and obviously communication. We could be on this for 17 days and talk about communication till the cows come home. But we've really nutted out and deciphered 12 key communication dimensions that we see every day that, if they were just tweaked and increased, could make such a big difference quickly.
Yeah, huge. And I think, being able to break them down into the 12 smaller components gives you something specific to give feedback on. Because Renée, if I said to you, can you give me feedback on my communication, unless you were really confident, and I know you and I could do that because we've got that depth of relationship.
I was just going to say, can I? No.
where we've had some we've disagreed on things, and
we have.
we've sat with that, and we've, but I think we've respected the space and where the other person's coming from, and kind of listened. Where you don't kind of have that, or where you're not really sure where to start, what the 12 dimensions give you is just a really small sliver of focus, really. Just focus on this one thing, and just give feedback on that one thing. So it releases the pressure around saying, oh my gosh, I don't know whether you're a good communicator or not, because I tuned out for half of it, and then I'm not really sure what you said there, or how you said it, or whether you're supposed to. And you start to make it all about yourself. You're like, oh, I can see how she's doing that. I could never do that. I'm not confident enough. And so, but then you're not paying attention. So the observer cards are really good just to
stay on track. To stay
focus,
stay on track. And I think, like we said, this is fun. The feedback we've had already is this doesn't feel like work. Our team was really motivated. They learned a lot. We've put fun topics in. Those listening that know myself and Shelley, there's a few, wider cats have curfews, high heels should be banned. I clearly didn't write that one. And like I said, the wild cards. So I thought maybe we can just unwrap a few of the dimensions.
Yeah, absolutely. So the one that I was looking at just before was, does the speaker use stories, case studies, and metaphors?
That's the one I was going to.
But why is that important?
Why? Because stories evoke emotion. People remember how you make them feel, not what you tell them. So, we all know that. There's studies that show that people that have talked, there's a really big study. I won't go into all the details, but talking about all these 10 years of research and data for 2 hours, and they brought one story in, and 2 weeks later they asked all the attendees what they remembered. It was like 92% only remembered the story. So bring stories in. We've all got them.
Absolutely. They're so powerful. We remember them. They're symbolic. We can carry them through life. Life is like a box of chocolates. Always like Forrest Gump is, and that was a story, right? So, and I think I watched it once, and then, it was this thing that sort of caught on. One of the other observer topics is the speaker willing to explore different perspectives? And this is where I love to bring fun into the game. So at the launch, I had a card which was all emails should be written in uppercase. And I was thinking, what is it that I could use for the against argument? And all that popped into my head at the time, because you don't have a lot of time to prepare for this.
Yeah.
So, so the only thing that popped into my head was the reason why you would want all emails to be written in uppercase is to protect your pinky finger from using the shift key all the time.
I love it.
Went down the RSI track, and I sort of surprised myself, but it's the willingness to kind of go, it doesn't matter how far out things are. And I think we're a little bit too conservative in how we approach topics. Is RSI and your pinky finger, really? Like
but what it does, when you're for something, you agree with something, you've already sort of backed it up in your own mind. That's the easy side of the topic to talk about. When we're against, that's when we have to become adaptable, and we have to become creative and curious, right? And curious about how could I be against that? So I think what you said, you can have fun with this, and we've both run this a few times with teams already, and people are laughing, and it's just such a great game to bring into team meetings. Have a theme. One of the 12 observer dimensions, easy to follow language. Does the speaker provide easy to follow language? I think sometimes people try and be a bit too clever, or they've become so ingrained in their business culture that, they're going the PG of the RP of the TP of the BR. What do you think, Shelley? And Shelley doesn't want to look silly. out in the real world. So she might not ask me what those things are, and it causes a disconnect. When there's a disconnect, there's lack of rapport, and rapport is connection and influence. So you've lost that person. So I think easy to follow language. If you do use acronyms at work, or especially with external clients, explain what they are. Even in proposals, Shelley, we will have an acronym of a tool we might use, and in brackets we put the full name at least twice in the proposal, and then we stop putting the full name.
Definitely worth, extrapolating that, drilling down, and then being able to cascade that out, don't you think, Renée?
Totally specifically look at the potential pitfalls. Yeah. So I think that's really important. And I think one of the mindsets in this game is just to come in with a curious mindset, an open mindset, and have a bit of fun. You know, we actually, Shell, the other week had just a small team, had a leadership meeting. I wasn't there. And they just used the topics as a bit of an icebreaker. They chose some of the more leadership topics. So we've got, in the pack, we've got topics from plastic should be banned to something like there is no right, wrong, only different. There's some really diverse topics in there, and obviously you can write your own as well.
I think in terms of the game, so this is not a game that it's not a game that you just play for fun. It is fun, but there's this serious undertone, and there is so many lessons that can be learned. And so, when we came up with this game, what we didn't want, because both of us are really passionate about making a difference for people and supporting leaders, and it's such a challenging space right now that we're like, how can we give leaders a tool that they can use almost daily? They could almost use this every day in one-on-one conversations if they want. They could use them in team meetings, but it's all about coming back to it. Communication, like any skill that you learn, is all about repetition, isn't it?
It's practice, and you don't really become, there's no expert ceiling. Even in leadership, we talk about it. We've got to learn, unlearn, evolve ongoing, because the world's changing. Who knew 3 years ago we'd be working in a hybrid world, which isn't going away? In 5 years, we'll probably be chatting going, who knew this was going to happen? So communication, I've always said, Shell, leadership, we both do lots with leaders and teams, but strip leadership, that name away. It's all about communication. The best leaders communicate effectively, clearly. They coach, which opens up communication. They delegate, which helps them communicate and empower. It's all related to communication. Is there another one of the 12 dimensions? We'll go through 2 more and then wrap it up.
So the other one is, does the speaker have include breadth and depth? So
what I was about to do.
But, coming back to your personality clash is, where's the appreciation to go wide as well as the appreciation to go deep? So those that like big picture, probably more around that breadth. Those who like who like detail, more around depth. As anyone who's wanting to improve communication, but I think most importantly leaders, is, do you have the ability to go wide and deep? And I think, the name that they used to give that was the T-shaped leader.
T-shaped, yeah.
But I think that's a really good one for people to practice with. Is, can I go deep on something? Can I go wide on anything? Where does that lead me? But it's creativity, it's imagination. You've just got to
and awareness. It's awareness of going. And there's nothing wrong if you're what we call a depth, if you're motivated by detail, nothing wrong with that. Or if you're big picture, a bit like us, nothing wrong with that. But the key is to adapt and bring both in. So if I'm talking or emailing somebody that's high detail, I will put more detail in rather than bullet points. When Shelley and I communicate, we speak in bullet points, we're both big picture. We match that, so it's easy. but it's just being mindful of appreciating that. And when you appreciate it, you're a dream team. You know,
Yeah.
Shell, think about our business, both of our businesses, our back-end teams are both high detail because we're not. If they were like us, we probably wouldn't be here today talking.
Yeah, quite right. Nothing would get done.
No.
But it's also being able to, you know, you've written a couple of books, I've written a couple of books. It's I don't know about you, but for me, the reason I write books is so that it forces me to go into the detail. Do I enjoy it? No, I absolutely don't. Will I do it anyway? Yes, because I think it's a skill that we've got to refine and we've got to learn. Absolutely.
It's a discipline. The only other little one I'd love to talk about is a speaker creative and curious in their approach? And I think we talked about this briefly. To be curious, question things. So, you know, if you've got to present something next week at a meeting and you really don't know where to start, get 10 questions down about the topic. Open questions, not statements. And that's my biggest tip with curiosity. We think in statements, you know, that team's amazing, nothing happens. What makes that team amazing? You'll provocate and actually explore that further. So bringing curiosity in, and I know you do too, Shelley, we believe that curiosity is a superpower of any leader and in any role.
Yeah.
So the game has its own website, which is really exciting. And as Shelley and I have co-created it, we've built the website together, and it gives you some tips on the game, why we wrote the game, a bit of background. You can order the game there. The website's 2 sides, so the number 2 sides in 2 minutes. And we have some exciting news, Shelley, for November.
We do. We've decided that we're going to run a leaders breakfast, which will incorporate a conversation around the 12 dimensions of communication, as well as being able to play the game. So we get to put it into action, get to hang out with like-minded individuals.
Exciting. So what date's that? What date was it? November.
I think November 17th.
Yeah. So that's a morning session.
It's a breakfast one. Yeah.
So the leadership breakfast. So you can come along, play the game, walk away with a copy of the game, connect with lots of great leaders, and you're getting basically a 2.5 hour communication workshop that you can really go into. Shelley, thank you so much for joining.
My pleasure.
Today.
It's been great to chat.
It has. And thank you for those that have listened today. 2 sides in 2 minutes.com. Shelley, how do people .au, sorry. How do people find you if they're looking?
Look, I always start with LinkedIn.
Yep. LinkedIn, Shelley Flett. It'll all be in the show notes. So keep an eye out for the November 17th Leadership Breakfast. And we've also got some in-house programs. Shelley and I are both running with leaders and teams. So if you or your team would like us to come in and tailor a communication program, including some group coaching and a face-to-face workshop, keep in touch. So wherever you are in the world, have a great day or night, and we look forward to tuning in with you soon.